All right. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. And I love it. Promoter 101. Yeah, I love it. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. And I love it. Promoter 101. Yeah, I love it. Promoter 101.
Hello there, this is Dave Shapiro from UTA, and you're listening to Promoter 101. This is Promoter 101, the podcast, episode 70, and this is the episode we've been building to for 17 months. We've got the biggest promoter in the world today.
That's absolutely true today, Dan. We are joined by Live Nation's CEO, Michael Rapino, in a special interview recorded from Pollstar Live this past week in Los Angeles, plus News of the Week.
Tim Sweetwood, C3 presents Promoter 101.
We're just finishing up our world tour, but you can catch us when we come to your town.
For international listeners, come hang with us at the Royal Garden Hotel in Kensington in London for the International Live Music Conference. That's ILMC. Thursday, March 8th at 5 p.m. Dan's going to be moderating Tales from the Frontline with manager Paul Crockford.
And for our domestic listeners, feel free to jump on a plane and come hang out with us in London, too. It's a great hang. I think all you need is a $900 badge, and it'll be awesome. And if you have anything on your mind and you want to share it with me or Luke, email either of us at Steiny at promoter101.net. We're ready to listen to you. We'll probably respond.
And keep up with us on Twitter. I'm at WLukePierce, Dan's at The Jew, and the show is at Promoters. That's Promoters, plural, 101.
This is Sam Hunt from Paradigm. You're on Promoter 101.
If you've missed any of the past podcasts, you can always catch up with us at promoter101.net. This week we feature a classic reissue of episode 28.
That podcast features a special live recording from Canadian Music Week 2017 with then UTA, now APA's Jack Ross, talking about leading the way in Canada, and a special interview with Golden Voice's Elliot Lefko in his hometown, talking about touring and festivals.
And if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to Promoter 101. It's not like it costs nothing. It's just always there waiting for you when you're ready. Every week, just a brand new Promoter 101 ready to go. And if you get a chance, write us a review. Unless it's not going to be a nice review, then keep that shit to yourself.
I'm Sarah Beasley from Wolf Trap, and I'm on Promoter 101.
News of the week.
Dan, it's time for the news of the week. Let's start with this. SFX founder and 90s promoter roll-up king Robert Sillerman has filed for bankruptcy and is warning his company Function is facing a similar crisis. This would be Sillerman's second bankruptcy in as many years as SFX filed for bankruptcy in 2016. The founders of React Presents and Club Tix had entered into a Chapter 7, that's liquidation bankruptcy, and Sillerman had requested that a judge convert that to a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which would give him more control over his business as bankruptcy worked its way through the courts. Now, Chapter 7 is never a great sign for anybody. You're literally talking about pennies on the dollar for the value of the business. And this also comes at a time when Sillerman's under investigation from the SEC for allegedly misappropriating $6.6 million from Function, including a $500,000 withdrawal with no supporting documentation. This is some excellent reporting by Amplify magazine on this one. Sillerman's saga seems destined to never end.
Not his first bankruptcy. Clearly, there's a lot of things to be worked out here.
We'll have to see how this plays out. Stay tuned. There's some great reporting, like we said, going on in Amplify and Billboard. I'm sure we'll have a follow-up to this.
Some sad news this week. APA partner Troy Blakely passed away. He's been at APA since '84, and he worked with some of the biggest names in music: Robert Plant, Fleetwood Mac, Hart, Lenny Kravitz, Judas Priest. We'll be joined later in the episode with a remembrance from Danny Zalesko on Troy.
Some congratulations are in order. ICM Partners minted 6 new partners this week. That's 3 men and 3 women, including the LA-based Scott Mantell. That's the agency's head of international touring, who joined as an assistant in 2003 and now represents acts including Nicki Minaj, Lil Wayne, D'Angelo, Cyndi Lauper, Postmodern Jukebox, and so many more. He's joined by Adam Genovesian, who works across both comedy and concerts, who joins ICM Partners as the youngest partner in the firm's history.
Congrats to all of those guys. Pollstar is reporting Portugal the Man, fresh off their big win at the Pollstar Awards on the 8th, just had a bus fire right around their Iowa Memorial Union show on February 13th. No one was hurt and didn't affect their sold-out show. Way to make the date work, guys.
Irving Azoff and Sharon Osbourne took the stage at Pollstar Live to comment on the ongoing venue wars between AEG and MSG and Live Nation, with Azoff MSG chairman Azoff calling the claim that AEG is an artist-friendly company a pack of lies. Sharon Osbourne went on to be equally irked, commenting that Ozzy can't play the O2 in London unless we legally agree to play the Staples in LA. This is a staggering attempt to blackmail Ozzy into playing your venue in Los Angeles, and it's also complete abuse of bargaining power and not conducive to a free market. This is a little bit of a free-form spat on stage, but not surprised that Irving stocked the stage in that moment with a friendly in that situation to lob this across the board. Dan, were you in the room for this? Did you see this happen?
It caught me off guard. I think that the venue wars seem far from over.
That's it for News of the Week.
This is Mike Mills from Mills Entertainment, and you're listening to Promoter 101.
And finally, we'd like to shine a spotlight on this week's Badass of the Week from American artist Mike Weinstein. He's a kick-ass agent representing loads of artists, including Moon Alice and Buckethead, making him this week's Promoter 101 Badass of the Week. Congrats goes out to you, Mike.
Hey, this is Jared Paul from Faculty, and you're listening to Promoter 101.
Tweets of the week.
Dan, it's that time of the week where we take a minute and ask you, what was going through your mind when you wrote each one of these Promoter 101 tweets? Only got one this week. When an agent sits on an offer for months, then doesn't understand that their challenge takes more than 15 minutes to clear.
Yeah, I love that. We have to be patient while we wait on you, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, come on, I challenged this 15 minutes ago. What's going on? Work with us, guys. Work with us.
That'll do it for Promoter 101 Tweets of the Week. You can keep up with Dan on Twitter. He's at The Jew. And if you have your own Promoter 101 thoughts, feel free to tweet them at us or email them over, anything that we like. Mike could use in this podcast.
Hey, this is Rich Schaefer from Loyalty Management, and you're listening to Promoter 101.
Our featured interview this week was recorded from Pollstar Live, the Intercontinental Hotel in downtown Los Angeles last week, as Dan sat down with...
Whoa, Luke. If you don't mind, I think we should call in the biggest manager in the world, Irving Azoff, to do the official intro here.
Couldn't agree more. So let's please welcome from Azoff Music, Mr. Irving Azoff.
I can't say enough good things about my friend and partner, Michael Rapino. We went through a lot together. We got to testify together before the Senate and House, I think out of their un-American committees or some shit when we were trying to merge these two companies. But I've watched carefully, and the live business has undergone a big transformation. For those of you that play the stock market and have watched, Michael has done an incredibly brilliant job of putting even more money in John Malone's pocket. He's Billboard's #1 this year, well deserved. Live Nation is a company that has grown and grown since the merger, but it's a company that I feel has kept its compass. They do what's right for artists. They do what's right for the business. This, to me, is an exciting keynote here that he's going to give to you. And I think Dan will do a really good job of asking him questions that you guys would like to hear answered. Hopefully, if he does a good job today, we'll sell Michael his company by lunch. But through it all, he's remained humble, available, and become a great leader for the industry. And without further ado, Dan Steinberg and Michael Rapino.
For those of you that don't know Michael Rapino, he is currently working at Live Nation as the Chief Executive Officer, a company valued at over $9 billion. That's billion with a B. He is literally the biggest concert promoter in the world and has just been named #1 on the Billboard Power 100 list. So he's kind of a big deal. Michael, welcome to your Pollstar Live Q&A Promoter 101 interview. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
#1 on the Billboard Power 100 list.
Now, just for the side note, my wife is here, who has actually never seen me speak anywhere and does not understand why I'm #1, because as we know at home, my 3 boys and my wife are absolutely #1. So today I get to be #1.
That's awesome. But #1 at kind of an early age. I mean, best you can do is tie yourself. So moving forward, there is no bigger. Is Billboard saying you've peaked?
Wow. It's like a therapy session now on what will I do next?
Clearly you're on top of your game, and nothing seems to be changing that anytime soon. I did talk to some of the bigger guys in the industry that know you, and here's what they had to say. Solo's John Giddings. He has taken the music business to a whole new level by creating a global operation, benefiting both the artist and consumers alike. A true visionary. Live Nation Canada's Riley O'Connor says, Rapino's ethos of letting you grow your business within his vision of creating a pathway for artists to become sustainably successful makes you realize every day when you come to work that you're part of something special. Steve Martin from APA says, Michael took a giant pirate ship filled with entrepreneurs, Mad Hatters, and professional assassins. And how he got them to all row the boat in the same direction is a magic trip on par with Houdini. That is some serious high praise from some very powerful people. Either they all really respect you or are totally afraid of you. But either way. So how does a kid from Thunder Bay, Canada become the most powerful man in the music business?
Wow. I'm listening, like everyone in this room, I think we're all gifted that we probably all had that passion. Somewhere early in life, we all loved what we were doing, live music. So I was, from Thunder Bay days and booking Jeff Healey in the pub and inspired by Michael Cole, who to us was our Bill Graham in Canada. He was, at that point had done the Rolling Stones Steel Wheels tour in 1990-ish. So as a kid in university, I looked at this god, Michael Cole, and this idea that he was buying this world tour, and that was just so inspirational, something I really aspired to be. And in university, I was what was called the campus rep, which really in Canada just meant they gave me a van with Labatt Blue on it, 50 cases of beer, and 2 boxes of hats. And you had to go figure out how to get people to drink Labatt Blue at the parties. So
you're the beer street team.
I was a street team. And Lakehead University is the last ranked school for academics, but number 1 for beer drinking. So it paid off in the end. So I got lucky. Life, you find these mentors, you find inspiration, you see someone. Cole was this guiding light. I loved this thing called live, and that was my shining star. And from there, I've just been chasing that dream and still love those 2 hours of live.
Let's talk about the acquisitions. Over the last few years, it's been a massive shopping spree for you. AC, C3, United Concerts, Insomnia, the Franks Brothers, the Soda Jerk venues in Denver, a list of festivals that goes on for days. Is there anything that you don't need to own?
The list is daunting. But business changes, right? And there's room for everybody. But the reality is any industry, no matter where you are, ultimately goes from fragmented to consolidated. Eventually that happens, whether it's Apple and iPhones or any business you look at. So the promoters were really just the last to start consolidating. Labels had long consolidated, as we know. Agencies had long consolidated, CA, William Morris, and some independents. But generally over time, industries consolidate. And the reason they consolidate is because all of those pieces in the chain ultimately start getting their margins squeezed. So if we were all sitting here in the good old days as promoters doing a 50-50, a 60-40, a 70-30, if agents were still making 15%, and when the pie was really full, you didn't need to consolidate and you didn't need to vertically integrate. As we all started to get squeezed, our pies got smaller, then you ultimately have 2 strategies. You have to either make your pie bigger by buying more of your same businesses, or you try to enter new businesses. So we from day one realized that ultimately well-capitalized companies are going to win in the end and be able to provide the best value to the artists, but ultimately to your employees too. So we've had this strategy from day one. We're not trying, we have a very big don't-do list and a very small to-do list, and it is we want to continually be the largest promoter in the world, have as many boots on the ground in as many cities and countries in the world as possible. So when U2 lands in Milan or Cape Town or Boston, we're the best place for them to play. So, we're, the business is still, people think Live Nation is so large. On a global basis, it's still a huge fragmented business. So still lots of opportunity for anyone to acquire and get bigger.
What are you looking for in particular in a partner or in a company that you're looking to acquire?
We always, three things we're always looking at. We're always looking for a great promoter business, regional promoter, if that's what it is, whether it's a market leader in Italy or a great company like the Frank brothers who have their territory locked up. We like that long-established entrepreneur, whether he's the promoter, whether he's a venue operator, or a creative genius like Pascal and Insomniac. So, festival creation or promoting, lots of cities, lots of markets still available that we still are looking at.
Did you bring your checkbook with you today? Asking for a friend.
Yeah.
All right, in all seriousness, what's left for the independents, and everyone else for that matter, because they're not all saying by the same rules as you guys because you're so well-funded and you can handle the debt burden. So for that matter, with this cash flow that you have and everybody else has to balance their sheets with the limited resources, has it become a one-horse race? Are all the independents just fucked?
Well, thank God you have that podcast going. I don't think it's a matter of whether independents can't survive. In any industry, it's like saying, is there only Apple, and if you have an iPhone, you're fucked? I mean, generally, Android and iPhone own the market, and other companies have to innovate or provide better products and scale to be competitive. So the challenge we all have is independent will survive, and I think in the record label now, I was reading some stat this week between Sony, Warner, and Universal, I think they were still 28% independent of the pie. So indies are still got their place and doing well in the record side. I assume indies, smaller companies, will continue to survive and do well in the global business of promoting. The problem, though, is what I look at is in order to keep being innovative and trying to be the best for your employees, provide research, launch things like Verified Fan, hire those extra research, analytics, data, technology people, things you want to get done in the future does require you having some level of capital, some level of scale so you can invest in the future. That's the challenge, right, is how do you make sure that you're providing the future, and ultimately that does take some level of resources and investment to be able to do.
Just between us girls, why didn't you buy SMG?
Oh, geez, between us. It's not our core business, and many people, we like everyone else, we look at everything. Most things are for sale are going to ultimately call us. We'll look at it. But venue management at that scale isn't our business. We don't want to be in the scale venue management business. Our core business is those 30,000 concerts a year, and promoting and putting those in whatever venues are best for the artist, and then the economics. So ultimately, we're not looking to be a scale venue manager outside of the kind of the properties we manage.
30,000 shows a year. You clearly aren't getting to all of them. How many shows a year are you covering?
I'm still, it's still a love I do, so it's a great way to obviously, see your staff, connect with your artists. So I'm still going to 30 or 40 shows a year.
Let's play real or rumor. There are a lot of stories out there about you. Let's find out what's real and what's urban folklore. Real or rumor? You have a spiritual guru.
Oh, wow. I have a ton of mentors that have helped me. I believe that you're on this ever-ending quest to, especially in this egocentric business, right? You can either make it about someone else or figure out how to do the work on yourself. So I've always in my life had, whether it's business mentors like Irving and others, or Jimmy Iovine, or whether it's coaching and other mentors that have helped me figure out what I want to get done in life. So, yeah, I've got a bunch of people, though, that over my time that have helped me keep the compass set.
Real or rumor? You were involved in closing the Metallica tour over a meeting with Lars.
Oh, that shouldn't be a rumor. I mean, we got a great team. Bob Rue, Arthur Fogel. We got an incredible touring team around the world. Bruce Moran, John Reed, and et cetera. So those guys are doing tons of tours all year. And there's a bunch of artists that ultimately at this level, if you're, Lars, and you're looking at a long-term deal, you want to understand the CEO and what we're up to. So I get involved in a lot of pitches, whether it's Lars or other artists, or whether it's, the CEO of Citibank. I am ultimately the face for our business, and I try to get out and make sure that people connect and understand what we're about.
Well, you're said to be very art-eccentric with a relationship with Kendrick Lamar, U2, Coldplay, Jay-Z, Drake. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, you guys all do it for a living. You know, I think in the live side of the business, we think of it different than the recorded, but I really do believe we work for the artist. I mean, I know that sounds so obvious, but it's not something that's not so obvious in maybe the recorded side. You know, we didn't write the song, we didn't perform it. So ultimately, Live Nation is an artist service business. That's all it is 30,000 shows, and a bunch of artists wake up with managers and agents and say, do I want Live Nation to be my promoter? And do we get the repeat business? So all these employees that wake up every day, tone from the top, from me down, is they're right, we work for them, and if we do a good job, they hire us again. So that's the ultimate mission of our company. We're not a venue business. We don't wake up ultimately worrying about real estate development. We don't worry about any other parts of the business other than, will that artist pick us to be the promoter for their business?
All right. When was the last time you personally built an offer? That's a fair question.
It's a good question. You know, the irony is my employees probably think I'm ultimately somewhere between a great leader and a complete fucking pain in the ass micromanager. So some of them are probably rolling their eyes. Omar's here. We get into spreadsheets pretty regularly about the latest and greatest tour. So, I mean, listen, the numbers are big nowadays, right? When you're putting, you know, a global tour together for some of these artists and you're putting a $40, $50, $60 million deal together, I'm deep in that, and they want me deep in it. So
yeah, I have that $40 million problem every day.
There we go.
Do you have to pay more for talent because you're Live Nation than anyone else?
I don't think so. I mean, listen, touring is a business of paying a premium ultimately, right? Whether it's us or AEG when we're fighting at that top level, the idea of a tour is you're asking for 100% of the market. So the reason that you would pay a premium is because, you know, to an artist or an agent, the best way to get the premium price is to bundle. I ultimately believe. I think the worst way to get your value is to debundle. So the reason that you have a 5-record deal versus selling a single to a record store is, as you bundle, you can extract the most value. So when you hear about Live Nation or AEG maybe paying a lot, at a tour level, we may be perceived that we paid a premium versus you may have got that artist for $400 in your market and we paid $450. The difference is I'm asking the artist to give me 100 of the dates, where I might have only gotten 40 if I played local. Well, of course, I'm going to have to pay a premium to have the full run.
But you're making it up in volume.
You make it up in volume. So I think the messaging of touring paying a lot gets very different. Now, does Jason Miller pay more in New York than Jim Glancy for a Green Day date? No, because they're going to pay whatever the agent has decided is, and they're going to play them both off, and whoever pays the dollar more wins, ultimately, if there's not a relationship involved. So I think it's, you know, I think tours are kind of sometimes the headline that kind of get that perception that we pay a lot. I just think the touring game, I always joke with my guys, I don't know any tour I bought recently that was cheap. I don't have an agent calling me saying, I got a deal for you if you buy them all.
Can we get the Live Nation logo put up for a second? Real or rumor, the guy on the Live Nation logo with his hands in the air was modeled after you.
I hadn't heard that. No.
Put your hands up for a second.
No.
When you guys see it too, right? All right, we'll take your word for it.
That logo was created as a long-term friend of mine, Robert Peters, when we were going public, spinning out of Clear Channel was 13 years ago in December, and we had to come up with a logo, a name. I actually had picked the name Live Star, and a week before I didn't really like it, and it was very hard to find a name that was actually not used globally. And then at the last minute, Robert Peters said, I think we should do Live Nation, and I hated it. And I slept on it that night, and I came home, and I went, absolutely, it's a great name. Now, what people don't know is the day we went public, if you went to liveNation.com, you went to a porn site in Holland. Because we actually didn't have time to clear it. So Mojo went up and bought the rights out to it fast, and we ended up getting the rights to the name globally. So it was a run-and-gun logo. We modeled it after the NFL was actually the creative brief on how do we create a logo or a brand or a company name that kind of is all-encompassing.
Real or rumor, you married the commander from Star Trek Next Enterprise.
Oh, right. Well, there you go. And she's here, my beautiful wife, yes. Cast her in my Labatt days, I cast her in a TV commercial, and she had no interest in me, thought I was the grip. and a dog on a bone, I just kept chasing for a long time, and ultimately it's the best move I made.
Thanks for playing Real Rumor. Let's get back into some real questions. Security is a hot topic issue. Coming off of Manchester and Vegas, it's on everyone's mind. How do we protect our fans from what's happening beyond the venue border?
I mean, it's a tough one, right? I think we're all ultimately gotta figure this one out. It's horrific, obviously, over the last year between Vegas. I mean, listening to Brian O'Connell, I don't know if he's here, and my team. Brian O'Connell every year goes to the USO, crazy countries around the world with certain artists. It's kind of crazy that his most horrendous moment was a parking lot in Vegas, not in Afghanistan. So it's Manchester, Vegas, this idea that now just not protecting who's in the building but outside the building is now a whole nother level that as an industry we have to all start trying to solve. I will weave in, I think there's many ways we have to solve it. Technology hopefully will help some of it, identification. But I do believe the real challenge or the real opportunity in our business is we got to get rid of the barcode, because the barcode is really the key to a whole bunch of problems in our business, scalping being the one that we can go on if you want. We're the last industry where you have a barcode. Most people have gone to a digital ticket. So the airlines, hotels who used to be barcode in their day. So our big challenge right now is you look at Vegas. When we say we sold 30,000 tickets, we sold 30,000 barcodes. And we don't know who that barcode was passed to. We don't actually know exactly who was in the Vegas venue. We can't actually send a text out to 30,000 saying, run left, right? So I do think that identity has to become an important piece of our business. I do think we should know who those 70,000 people in the U2 concert are. So I think that's a big part, because I think if we have better identity ultimately, we can respond faster. I just think identity is also a huge tool we can all use in figuring out how to limit the distribution of tickets in the scalping market. So I think that's one example where technology will be our friend and help us all elevate our game on how do we secure the audience before they get there, after, when they're there, and et cetera.
Well, I think it's clear that there's some things that no one in the world could foresee. And in the case of Vegas, it's clearly an act of madman. Irving Azoff was part of Live Nation not so long ago, and you seem to have kept a pretty close relationship, as we saw in the intro. Where does Live Nation start and Oakview Group end? Because it seems a little blurry.
Yes, we do get asked that. So where do I start? Let's start with Irving. Irving, as we all know in this industry, there's a few from David Geffen to Irving to, I guess, Jimmy Iovines. There's just a few of these mentors in life, or these people that have just been incredible at building their businesses, their brands, and being the king of the industry. So Irving being part of Live Nation was instrumental in really the strategic move of Live Nation and Ticketmaster coming together. That really took us from a small, in terms of a balance sheet, to where we are today, and let us kind of really excel our growth. But ultimately, Irving as an entrepreneur and what he does on his own is much better for him to soar. And we both mutually have a huge respect for Tim. I always had a ton of respect for Tim, even when we competed. He's a tough competitor. I dreaded the days when someone would walk in and say, I'd be in a pitch meeting and I knew they were going to meet him after, because that man could sell, ice to an Eskimo. He's good. He's done a fabulous job. We have no ownership in OVG, zero. We're huge supporters of OVG, which Irving is an investor in. We loved him. We hope he grows on whether it's an alliance, whether it's Seattle, his development of buildings, his Pollstar. So we're huge supporters. We'll continue to be cheerleaders, and we'll be business partners selectively where it makes sense for our business. And I think people like Tim are creators, and entrepreneurs like him, we need lots of those in this business.
Let's talk about the ethos of Live Nation. It seems to start at the top with you and work its way down from the newsletter and the monthly employee recognitions. Can you talk about your philosophy of the Live Nation culture?
Yeah, I mean, in life you kind of remember moments when people told you things. There were two stories that earlier in my life that kind of shaped it. So number one, Donald Tarleton, I don't know if any of you know, in Montreal, DKD, one of the great promoters, was part of this network, CPI, DKD, the Canadian mafia, and I was...
You guys call yourselves that too?
Well, they are. I was just a kid looking up to them all. And I always remember I went to, they had a Pink Floyd show in Montreal. I was still in Toronto. We went to the show. I had met this really pretty girl, and I brought her as a date. And I remember we went to the pre-show, and the original Division Bell tour, I think that was called way back in the day. And the band was there and a bunch of people. And we walked out to the show, and the girl looked at me and said, "I'm really sick. I got to go home." And I said, "Oh, okay, great. That's it." She went home. I sat with Donald. We went to the after party. I walked in. She was in the corner with the drummer. And Donald Tarleton looked at me and said, "It's called show business, kid, and you should focus on the business part." The second pivotal moment was with Michael Cole. I remember 15 years ago, we're sitting with Michael, and I looked at him, we were having lunch, and I said, "Do I want to be Michael Cole or Michael Eisner?" And he said, "Oh, no, fuck, you want to be Michael Eisner because he hires Michael Coles." And to me, the Michael Coles were this inspiration, right? And I think this business is very sexy. And we all believe that if we get close to talent, great gifts will happen to us. I was on the other side. I really love running the business. I love building Live Nation. I really love my employees believing I care about them. I get excited about the latest benefit program we're going to roll out. So I've really always, when you talk about culture, what is culture? Culture to me is ultimately, I live in fear that the 26-year-old kid working for me in Finland thinks I'm an asshole that has lost touch. Right? I want them to believe that regardless of how big we are, that I'm building a company that still cares about them, that's still accessible. I answer all their emails.
You're really good at that. You return an email really quick.
Yeah, so I believe in the culture is ultimately the demonstration of the leadership. Is it authentic? I have a town hall every 4 months. I tell my employees, 7,000 will get on that call. And I tell them all the time, this is your company. You can have me fired by noon if 6,000 of you are on Twitter. So if you give me good input, I'll do a better job. Otherwise, I make really dumb decisions in LA by myself. So when you have that authentic relationship where the secretary in London believes at least she is accessible to me, and every 4 months when I get on these calls, I talk about all the things the employees said we should do better, whether it's, extended maternity leave or, covering childcare, or giving 2 weeks off if your parents are sick, or whatever the latest and greatest way we can say we care. So I believe that somewhere in the last few years, I started to figure out that running a company isn't the mission. Serving a company is the long game. So ultimately, I'm not looking to write the book that I know, Lars. I'd love to write the book that talked about how not that I'm going to write a book, but ultimately, can you lead a company with soul in a pretty egocentric industry?
I think a lot of people in the room would buy that book. Let's talk about festivals. Both you and AEG are buying up all the festivals. As if we're watching a game show, who's buying that festival? And clearly, it's streamlined the booking process. Everything is the same headliner over and over again on all of these events. Is Live Nation and AEG's involvement in all the festivals leading to a lack of unique lineups?
I think the lineup and the headliners are definitely this year becoming a problem. I would agree on that. I don't know whether our ownership or theirs is the reason. I look at Coachella, which I've always given Paul tons of credit. I think he's one of the great festival creators. But it's tough out there. I think in America, where this kind of the headliner festival explosion has happened, it's a very different story than in Europe. In Europe, festivals lived forever. They were a really vibrant way because you didn't have arenas, you don't have hockey and basketball. They're just great places for bands to reach 70,000 people. So the lineups have always been very varied across Europe. In America, unfortunately, the festival became the how do I go get 3 times what I can make in an arena play, and it became I've done the arena run, I've done a stadium run, I'll go clean up in festivals. And then there's, so that cycle lives now where 8 or 9 artists say, manager agents say, let's go get the festival money, and you have too many festivals looking for headliners. The challenge is we're all got to compete with the Coachellas and the Lollapaloozas historically. So the pool every year of what artists want to headline a festival, what artist is big enough so my festival feels like it's in the big league, is a small pool. And ultimately, you look in 2018, whether you want a festival, I do, or AEG, there's what artist is willing to play a festival, meaning he doesn't want to do his own production, his own arena or his own stadium, and is willing to travel and play those. There's 5 or 6, 7 headliners every year that you go, that's the pool that's willing to headline. Now, I see a new surge in a lot of these one-day boutique festivals and smaller festivals. I think the next generation of promoters and creators will spend more time worrying about the experience and less time worrying about the actual price of the headliner. So I think that'll be a huge movement on not just figuring out how to put all of your money on the stage, have a great stage lineup, but also how do I take care of them? I think my guys in Bottle Rock in Napa set the stage for it. I mean, those guys, they wake up thinking about how to create a hospitable, unique environment to go to a 3-day festival and have great entertainment. So I think if your proposition is solely your headliners, you're probably got a tough business model because you're going to get bid up and you're relying on that. If your proposition is about maybe uniqueness or ultimately about a wider experience, you'll have a shot to exist.
Hookah and fire kind of fucked the system this year with the festivals. Did we lose credibility with the fans and the festival system with what those guys did last year?
No. I mean, you look in the big picture, businesses go bankrupt every day. I mean, what's the barrier to entry to be in the festival business? I got a plot of land and a rich fucking uncle, and I'm in the festival. I mean, agents will sell you. As long as it's a deposit up front, they'll sell you. And no disrespect, some artists, sometimes it works that way. So the barrier's low. We love every time a hookah or somebody gets hit because it does remind the agents, the managers, and the ecosystem that this is a big league game. And you probably should maybe take $1 less or play the right play or the credible play or the long-term play with somebody than just the money play.
This is the halfway point in the interview. You've established that you're pretty much the smartest guy in the room. You've been very charming. We've shown a clear and friendly rapport. But the game is won in the 4th quarter. Are you ready for the second half, Michael?
I guess so. It says 3 minutes left.
No, we're good.
You know that Shelly Azoff is in the front row, and she'll come and kick your fucking ass if you get a little bit too... And my wife is here. She'll really kick your ass.
You guys want more, or do we need to end this? You guys good? Are you guys selling tickets on the secondary market as Live Nation?
I do think it is worth... Whoa, okay. You want to...
We got 3 minutes. Let's go.
I do think it is worth noting, though, when they asked me to do this, they gave me a bunch of options on who could interview me. I ended up deciding and reaching out to you because I thought it was a good idea that we get an independent from the outside.
Still think that's a good idea?
I do, and I do think it was, as I told you also, that we didn't pre-wire the questions. I wanted it to be authentic. So I assume there were some of these coming, so fire away.
No, I think we should talk about that. The secondary market, are you guys involved with that? I figured you'd want to talk about it and clear that up.
Right. No, I don't. Do I want to? Secondary is a complex business. At Live Nation Concert Company, let's distinguish Ticketmaster from Live Nation for a second, then we'll work backwards. Live Nation Concert Company does not put any tickets on StubHub or TM Plus in terms of take tickets off Manifest, place them on secondary. Not one. That's not our business. Not the way you run an artist-centric company long-term. So that doesn't happen at all. My goal every day is, I believe, ultimately, the way to solve secondary is to price the house better. Quit being so bashful. If they're going to pay more, charge more, and then ultimately lock it down with a verified technology type of format where you can get that $100 ticket direct to your fan. We as a company have no vested interest for secondary to win. We have a vested interest for the pot to get bigger, the artists to say, we're brilliant, we made them more money. That's ultimately how we win. So that's on the concert side. On Ticketmaster, we have a company called Ticketmaster Plus, which is a marketplace, which again, mostly driven by the sports leagues, the NFL and NBA and NHL, who have long embraced secondary in terms of trying to capture it. We power their exchange systems, their marketplaces. So if you want to buy a Lakers ticket, you can put it on TM Plus and sell it at a premium, and we make the service fee.
You guys are protecting the fan with that because you know it's a real ticket that way.
Real ticket, right. Well, listen, what happened is on the Ticketmaster side, we got frustrated. We're a marketplace to come and buy a ticket. So at 3-4 years ago at 10 o'clock, you'd come to buy a Beyonce ticket, and we basically put a sign up that said, sorry, we're closed. Go to StubHub for the next 8 months. And so we put all this money out, buy all these contracts from the venues, and StubHub runs away with the consumer, and everyone thinks, whoa, what a great service. I got a Beyonce ticket. So ultimately, we believe that Ticketmaster, the marketplace, when a customer wants to buy a ticket and it's sold out, we should be able to provide them an opportunity to buy a legitimate, official, secondary ticket when allowed by the artist. Mostly, though, it's sports business where it's all free game on that side. So again, Ticketmaster is a marketplace that lets people post tickets. We don't post inventory. Live Nation never posts inventory. And then you get to the, are there some artists who are taking some of the manifest and doing something with it? I don't hear, very, very small percent do I hear that actually really happens as much as people talk about it. But listen, there's DTI, there's Dynasty, there's everyone running around right now talking to managers, agents, and anyone alive saying, give me a bunch of those 500 P1s and I'll make you a bunch of money, right? So some artists, if that's what they want to do, I'm in the whatever you want to do artist business, right? So if an artist wants to ultimately take some of his tickets and do a deal with DTI or StubHub or whoever, that's his ticket and his business.
Well, as long as we're on Ticketmaster, let's talk about Verified Fan. You guys had a massive swing with that, rolling it out with Taylor, the biggest tour of the year. That could have gone either way. Is it working, and was there more to come with that?
Yeah, I think it's a great start, right? I think it's the first, Ticketmaster ultimately in 17 and forward is going to really continue to pivot. Listen, Ticketmaster for 40 years has been primarily worried about taking care of the venue, because that's what the business was. You have the exclusive deal at the Madison Square Gardens, and really your primary business was to service the sports teams, because the venue probably was an owner of a sports team. And if you secured that exclusive deal with the venue, when the concerts came to town, they were kind of, the second, kind of the tail on the dog. But the customer really was the NBA or NHL owner who owned the venue, and you spent all your time worrying about season tickets and 190 tools that Ticketmaster can do to take care of the venue. And that's what we got to keep doing and provide. And I'm so proud over the last 3 years. We've spent a lot of money, revamped our platform. We don't have all that technical debt that used to hear about. We've had all-time record renewals. But what Ticketmaster also has to do is also make sure going forward that we start powering the artist in his agenda. So 17, under Dave Marcus and others and Mark Yovitz, Verified Fan, sitting with artists and talking about, first of all, how should you price your ticket? How can you get that ticket directly to your fan? The ultimate, what an artist always talks about, right, is I want to charge, I don't care, I can charge $1,000 for the front row. I don't want my brand to say that. I want to charge $190. And can you make sure my fan can actually buy it, not a scalper? So I think as an industry, any way we can find a way to say, I can make sure Bill, your fan, got the $190 ticket, not the scalper, that's a good movement. Verified Fan, through our algorithm and registering, I think we made great progress overall in a lot of these tours. Pearl Jam we just announced and Bruce Springsteen on Broadway. We made great progress in registering fans and making sure, in Taylor Swift's case, actual fans got the ticket at the price she wanted. It's not perfect yet. We've got to get faster at it and less hoops, but any way that as an industry we can verify fans and make sure whatever the price is the artist wants, we as an industry can get it to them. I think that's a great way we have to end up. So I think the ultimate way, ultimately, the artist should control the ticket is my belief. He should price the house however he wants. We're going to always push him to probably make sure he prices it realistically, so we don't have $2 billion in secondary sitting on the other side, because as long as there's $8 billion in secondary, we can all work all hard all day and point fingers at who's doing what, but that's a real industry of professional bots monetizing the $8 billion from the business. That, to me, should be in the pot with the artist and the sports teams. But regardless of how much comes there, we got to figure out how the artist can price the house the way he should, sell his ticket direct, give him his data, power his business, and ultimately help him get to his fan direct so he has that relationship.
Well, we're on Ticketmaster. Let's talk about the investment in technology to transform the company into a technology company. That was an epic swing and big financial risk. What made you take that risk?
We spent tens and tens of millions of dollars. When we took over Ticketmaster, it had a 27-year-old platform. It's well known. fucking green screen. It was crazy. And the challenge was it was running off a 27-year-old platform. And the irony was you couldn't find a 22-year-old that could work on it because only a 50-year-old would know how to code in Vox, which is a 27-year-old platform. So when I took over Ticketmaster, its strategy was always it's stable, not flexible, right? Because the 10 a.m. on sale. We broke Ticketmaster in two. We believe that there's a marketplace business, which is about solving the consumer problem of he comes to Ticketmaster, he wants a ticket, solve his problem. Ticketmaster to date still is 70 million plus monthly uniques, larger than anyone, third largest commerce site in the world, sold over 500 million tickets at the site or the website or the mobile app. So we're proud that that business has continued to grow on its own. We've hired a ton of great people that understand marketplace conversion and drove that. On our software side, I remember Mark Cuban, one of the first things he told me 3 years ago was number one thing you got to fix at Ticketmaster is your API. You got to open up Ticketmaster. So what we really did at Ticketmaster, we brought these incredible new engineers in, as well as some of our existing, and embarked on this thing called Ticketmaster One. And what really you've seen at Ticketmaster, whether you've noticed it or not, is opening up Ticketmaster, right? This idea that we're in a closed system isn't really true. We've been buying exclusive rights to a venue for 10 years, but StubHub's had the same tickets for 10 years. So we've been overpaying for so-called exclusivity, but we haven't actually been exclusive. So as we were all pretending to be exclusive, StubHub and Vivid and others were running away paying no cost of capital and having the same tickets. But what we had to do was we had to be in the business to say we have to open up our platform. So TM Plus was our first kind of technical win, because TM Plus is actually just a way that the outside world can post inventory on your platform. Thus, it's not closed anymore. And now, we have a lot of integrated partners, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Groupon, you name it. Our job now when we sit with venues is, hey, we have the great host platform. We can power all of your ticketing needs, but it's also an open platform, so you can figure out how to allocate tickets to where you want, which was the big NFL announcement, where a venue can take tickets, they can put them on StubHub, they can put them on Amazon, they can put them wherever they want for their business needs.
Similar to the UK kind of ticketing?
Yeah. So, we knew we had to get there for the next version of life, and I think the reason we had a wildly successful 2017 renewing 10 to 12 of our clients was in 17 we were able to sit with a client and say, no, this isn't us versus SeatGeek, this isn't they're open and we're closed. We're open. You should be able to do what you want with your tickets on your venue. You should be able to allocate. Our platform now can do that, completely flexible, iPad ready, do as you want. And over here on the TM, we'll continue to be a great store. We'll probably be still your largest converter and your largest seller of tickets, but two very different businesses, and very proud of all of the engineering, all of the work. Jared Smith, Mark Yovitz, the team that led that pioneering transformation over the last 3 years deserves all the credit.
Okay, let's do a speed round. You just can't say both. Do you consider yourself an American or Canadian at this point?
So I can't speed around this, but it's very funny. As a Canadian, you can have dual ownership, right? Dual citizenship. So I have a Canadian passport and an American.
You're such a businessman. It's dual ownership. It's not.
I know it.
That's great.
I would have stayed Canadian, but my 3 sons are American, and my wife is. So I had this great fear that one day you'd kick me out of the country and I couldn't bring my babies. So beautiful part is I can be a dual citizen. As you know, an American you can't be. You can't be a Canadian and an American. So I do think it was ironic when I went to get my passport, or not, your passport application for citizenship, the lady looks at you and says, will you bear arms against Canada? And I thought, that is just such a very American way of looking at life on, give me your passport and get ready to shoot them if they come across the border. I thought, wow. So I do think it's ironic that Canada has the coolest leader right now in Trudeau, and America is in a funny place. But I love this country, love the opportunity. So I can't give you either on that one.
Okay, how about Tim Hortons or Dunkin' Donut?
Oh, Tim Hortons.
All right. Do you fly private or commercial?
Oh, you bastard. That's good. The one that hurts. I usually fly private.
All right. We've got a question from a student from the University of Massachusetts Music Business Program. Max Ferguson wants to know, what area of business have you not yet explored with Live Nation that you'd like to?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, listen, I started the conversation by telling you there's still a lot of runway left in what we do. So we aren't in some of the, the drama that some of these media industries are of how do I transfer my businesses. I think we are the luckiest in Pollstar Live, et cetera. I think we're the luckiest in the business because from caveman dancing around celebrating music till long after we're dead, people will gather to celebrate and dance around music. It's an innate need that we have. So we love experiential live. We love what we're doing. I don't need to be in the record business. I don't need to go look in other lanes. We think there is still a big global opportunity. We have no businesses in South America or Asia of substance. So huge geographies left, and we're going to still keep just playing for what we do best.
You've got 50,000 employees, right? Right around?
No, we got about 30,000.
Okay, so that's a baseball stadium full of employees with an overhead to match. How do you manage a staff that big?
Yeah, it's very, very, we have a very decentralized business. They're spread in 41 countries. So we have a very small head office. It's kind of just me and Joe and Kathy. We've always set up this organization that we don't really believe in synergy or down pressure. We let the businesses run their businesses. So running decentralized sounds simple, but it's actually really hard because most people want to control. So we have a very decentralized organization. How do I run, Roberto De Luca runs my Italian operation. He's running that. He does what he does best. He has access to all of the information and tools and things he needs from us. But, it's him and those 42 employees in Milan. And we're here to be investors. We're here to provide all the input we can. But the best way to run Italy is let Roberto De Luca do what he does best and have control and decide if they want Fridays off or where the office should be or what employees, kind of believe in. So we really do run decentralized. I don't get obsessed with trying to figure out how to control 30,000 employees. I get obsessed with who's trying to control them and get in their way and add bureaucracy.
Do you ever sleep?
Yeah, I have 3 boys all the time. Yes,
You guys have got a massive sponsorship arm. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, part of what we do is a living, all of us in this room. Sponsorship's an important part of what the business is. We think sponsorship is as important as ticketing, as is the concert business. Russell Wallach runs that division. We have over 900 brands. We all see, you read about it all the time, live, experiential. Brands want to now figure out how to be more part of that. So from day one, we've just always believed that sponsorship isn't how can you get a check and screw the brand with a banner on stage. It's an integral part of what we do. When you're running a 4 or 5% margin business on the concert side, meaning the artist is taking most of the money away, ultimately you've got to build a business that says, how else can I monetize the business outside of the gate? And I think we all know in here, sponsorship has always been an important part of the business, and we treat it with the utmost respect.
There's a million things that I would love to talk about. We are running short on time, so I want to leave you with this one. The fan experience. What's your vision for it?
I think it's a great opportunity. I think, when people talk about, what do you get excited about? I think there's a great opportunity forward I'm not sure in 10 years we'll be sitting here debating how we bought the latest tour or who bought a tour or what venue it played in. I think that's the commodity now. I think for 50 years there was a great celebration around the Bill Grahams and the art of buying. I unfortunately don't think there's much art left in buying. I think it's a business now. But that's okay because I think while we were doing the art of buying and believing it was very important, we sat backstage with our laminate in catering and didn't give a shit about the fan, right? And I think ultimately the companies that are going to win are going to start from how do fans love what I'm doing, how's the experience elevated. I looked at the San Francisco Arena. I saw the presentation of the $1 billion one they're building, and the way that they presented it was so different. It wasn't about it's an arena with 3 rows of suites. It was 21 experiential zones living in the venue and how they'll come to life. And I came back to the office and I said, that's the next level, right? How do you think about 20,000 are coming to a show or 500 are coming to a show, but will they love the experience when they get there? So I think all of us, listen, some days we're running Southwest Airlines and the money is what it is. You put the show on, you're in a crappy venue and you leave and there's not much you can do. I think the opportunity forward, and we're the ones that will admire and the ones we'll talk about will be those festivals, those clubs, those experiences, those venues where someone really started to revolutionize the way the audience experiences the show. And that, I think, is a huge opportunity for all of us. If you want to take the math part of it, I think the concert business runs somewhere in the $16, $17, $18 per head in terms of monetizing. The best football stadium's going to do about 45, right? Because they're waking up every day saying, how do I sell a suite, a high-end vodka, and experiential? The Masters will do $400. Right, so I think we have whales going to our shows. We have the most sexy product in the world. If average fan goes 3 times a year, when he brings his kids or his date or his wife, they want to be entertained and they'll spend what they want for that experience. So I think all of us have a great opportunity not just to obsess with the art of the deal, but the art of the show and enhancing that. And I think those companies will be the ones that ultimately turn us into commodities if we don't focus on that part.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Michael Rapino.
There you have it, almost 17 months in the making. Honored to have Mr. Michael Rapino joining us in Promoter 101, and compliments to Dan for just an incredible interview, humanizing Michael, talking strategy, and holding the feet to the fire in many ways. Just well done.
This is Eric Mayers from Red Light Management, and I am live on Promoter 101.
Celebrating birthdays the week of February 16th to 22nd, 2018.
On Friday, that's the 16th, Ashley Griffin.
Saturday, Lavas, Jason Flom, Steve Zapp, and Damon Metzner.
On Sunday, Harris Lewis.
Monday, the 19th, Blaine Kaplan and Rhett Lee.
On Tuesday the 20th, got to give a shout out to Segi Isho from Straight No Chaser, Ted Walker, Jake Leighton Pope over in the UK, Todd Cody, and Guy Sykes.
Wednesday, Adam Larimer and Dana Now.
On Thursday the 22nd, happy birthday to Jeff Howard.
Hey, happy birthday from all of us at the gang at Promoter 101.
I'm Harvey Cohen with Live Nation Canada, and I'm here on Promoter 101.
We're joined now by Danny Zaleska with Remembrance of Troy Blakely.
Sad to be talking about such a tragic thing for a guy who we've known for so many years to pass away so early. I mean, I was very saddened to hear about him going away. I knew he'd been sick for a while, and he'd gotten better, and I talked to him, and he went back to work, and Judas Priest things, his main band at this point of his life. And apparently the cancer came back, and we related a lot about that because he spoke to me when I got it. I had my own bout with cancer in 2003, so we had a lot in common. It's a weird thing about cancer and other people that have it. You're kind of like in this exclusive club you don't want to be a member of. But just the same, you're in it, and if you're lucky, you get to be in the Survivor Club, and that's what Troy was, because he survived, and he thrived, and he did his motorcycle stuff, and he still got to work, which he loved doing. He got married, he was really happy, and, this set in, and it took him way too soon. It's a very sad thing. It's one time I remember he said that if I get you taken out of business because I allow you to pay too much or I ask you for too much and you go along with it, what good is that going to be? Because I'm going to have to talk to some other schmuck who I don't know or like and start the process all over again. So we always had that understanding, and it's a rare one, especially these days. But this was in the time where agents and promoters dealt differently with each other because all the promoters were gambling with their own money, and he knew it. Just like, all the other great agents. Troy was certainly one of them. When the phone rang and I knew it was them, I always look forward to talking to him. As an agent, a great guy, a good guy to do business and battle with. And as a friend, I'll always remember him calling me up with that big, deep voice of his and asking me how I was feeling after I started chemo. I'll always remember him as a good guy.
Troy Blakely gone too soon. Thank you, Danny Zalesko.
If you want to reach out to us, send us an email to steiny@promoter101.net.
Quote of the week from Bob Marley. One good thing about music, when it hits you, you feel no pain.
We'll be back next week for episode 71 of Promoter 101. We'll be joined for featured interviews with Faculty Productions manager and New Kids on the Block, Mr. Jared Paul, DSP Show's Dan Smalls, and Dave Shapiro turns the tables.
Until then, we're wishing you sold-out shows for the weeks to come. Cheers.
This is Bobby Clay from C3 Presents, and you're listening to Promoter 101.